system BVAS ahead of the governorship and state assembly elections. In the ruling delivered on Wednesday, a three-member panel of the Court of Appeal led by Joseph Ikeye held that restraining the Electoral Commission would constrain INEC from conducting the March 11 elections. In an application, Peter Obi, presidential candidate of the Labour Party, had sought an order of the court restraining the INEC from tampering with the information embedded in the BVAS machines until the due inspection is conducted and certified true copies of them issued. Meanwhile, the Court of Appeal in Abuja has ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to allow Nigeria's President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu to inspect electoral materials used for the conduct of the presidential election. INEC conducted the presidential and National Assembly elections on the 25th of February 2023. On March 1st, Mahmoud Yakubu, INEC's chairman, declared Tinubu was the candidate of the All Progressives Congress winner of the election. Tinubu voted to beat Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party and Peter Obi out of the Labour Party, who came third. In the ruling on Wednesday, a three-member panel of the Court of Appeal led by Joseph Ikeye said having satisfied that there is substance in the application, grants Tinubu leave to inspect, scan and make photocopies of some of the electoral materials. Tinubu had filed an ex parte application on Tuesday, urging the court to allow him have access to the biometric voters accreditation system machines which were used in the conduct of the polls. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has inaugurated the legal team to challenge the controversial presidential election of February 25, 2023. The PDP presidential candidate, while inaugurating the legal team at his campaign headquarters in Abuja, charged it to establish the claim of illegality in the February 25 poll and reclaim the mandate of the Nigerian people. Addressing the team headed by J.K. Gadzama, Atiku said it was imperative that they work assiduously in reclaiming the mandate, not necessarily because of him and the PDP, but to strengthen democracy and the electoral process and for generations unborn. While still on electoral matters, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has issued certificates of return to winners of the February 25, 2023 House of Representatives election in Nigeria. The INEC chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu, presented the certificates to the members elect at the National Collation Center in Abuja. Yakubu had on Saturday said winners were declared for 423 legislative seats, indicating that supplementary elections will be conducted in 46 other constituencies. He said in the House of Representatives, 325 out of 360 seats have been won by 8 political parties.
We must elect a people's speaker that will understand the urgency of time, that the people have lost faith in governance. The people are disappointed. The people are even ready to keep people in government. We must start solving that problem, and solving that problem starts with electing an independent-minded person as a speaker, and not just only that, and setting our legislative agenda clearly, starting with issues of restructuring, issues that has to do with electoral reform, issues that has to do with unity and oneness. So that, because if you don't have this unity and oneness, you cannot even progress.
Well, in 2019, I was the only female member, but thank God we have one on board now. But I am, including, regardless of gender, the only returning member from the state as it stands.
Two of that local government is at West. And this are for West and this are for Central, are badly battered by gully erosion. These are areas that need urgent intervention. By the grace of God, I shall draw the attention of the federal government to address this issue. And of course, we know our people are predominantly farmers. We are going to do everything possible to ensure that we encourage our farmers we make an enabling law that we part positively on our output, our farm output.
I know what it means to be asked to come back to the National Assembly for the 4th time. I know that my people expect much more than they would expect from a new member from me, and I pray that by the grace of God that I will not disappoint them.
The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) says it will conduct supplementary elections in the Dogowa Tundunwada Federal Constituency of Kano State. This decision comes after the returning officer for the federal constituency elections held on February 25, Ibrahim Yakasai, reviewed the result of the elections held in the area. According to Yakasai, the commission had reviewed the initial results that were allegedly announced by him under duress. Yet that INEC, in compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Act, had reviewed the results. President Muhammadu Buhari has joined Nigerian women in celebrating the International Women's Day, observed on March 8th, recognizing the invaluable role women have played in advancing the progress of the country since independence. The president, in a statement, saluted the hard work and dedication of Nigerian women working tirelessly in achieving results in different fields, adding that against all obstacles, women in leadership positions are delivered in a society still largely dominated by men. He thanked the Amazons who have served meritoriously as partners in the progress witnessed on the political, economic and social fronts. He added that against all obstacles, these women in leadership positions have delivered in a society still largely dominated by men. From cultural norms to workplace harassment, many women struggle to excel in digital spaces. To this end, women all over the world have called for gender equality, as well as improved involvement of women in the ICT sector. With the theme Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality, the United Nations, in its yearly celebration of International Women's Day, is hopeful that the observance will explore the impact of the digital gender gap on widening economic and social inequalities. Well, more details in this report. Despite accounting for nearly half of Nigeria's over 200 million population, data from the National Bureau of Statistics indicates that women make up a fifth of people working in the information and communication technology sector. For many women like Abiola Razak, a software tester of many years, the gender gap in Nigeria's ICT sector runs deep. She says while some women have been fortunate to break the glass ceiling, many more are still left out.
In my department, when I joined my company, the company I currently work for, I was the first female engineer they've ever had since the inception of the company, like the first female engineer ever. So that's to tell you, and I know that a lot of companies are the same thing. You check engineering department of a lot of companies, even here in Nigeria, you find out that they are all male dominated. The need to prove yourself is lower, but as a female, you need to prove yourself. Like, I'm not just coming here to fill up space. I actually have something in my head and something that what's adding to the company. So it's like you literally have to prove yourself. And you know that if I do not perform the way I need to perform, I kind of shut the door for other females to come into the company.
Over the years, advocacy to improve female enrollment in science, technology, engineering and mathematics-related fields have seen a growth. However, data by the National Bureau of Statistics shows that women make up only 22% of the total number of engineering and technology university graduates on a yearly basis. This poor number is closely linked to cultural narratives and gender norms.
The implication of this is that there are limited persons available to mentor young women who are trying to foray into this field. And then there are also lack of resources, safe spaces, conducive environments to enhance social equity or to enhance development and resources for young women who are trying to foray into STEM or the digital field, which is a male-dominated field.
As a solution, advocates say protecting the rights of women and girls in digital spaces remain crucial if the number of women in the ICT sector will see the desired boost.
For more young women to go into these spaces, we must ensure that there is an environment that enables them. Are women asking for handouts? Absolutely not. We're not asking for handouts. We're not asking you to disenfranchise or people to give us opportunity. We're just asking for safe spaces so that we can thrive without fear of violence, without fear of harassment, and without fear of our gender standing as an hindrance to our success and development.
The United Nations, in its yearly celebration of women, is hopeful that this year's theme, Digital Innovation and Technology for Gender Equality, will recognize and celebrate the women and girls who are championing the advancement of transformative technology and digital education. Folashade Ogurinde, TV360 News. And still on the International Women's Day, the Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center has organized a conference to celebrate International Women's Day. Speaking at the conference in Lagos, the Executive Director, Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center, Abiola Akiyode Afolabi, explained that digitalization can help promote gender equality. Akiyode Afolabi added that there is a need for women to be more innovative and make use of digital spaces. She also called for intervention on the case of a missing day-old child, Joseph, who has been missing for over 3 months in Lagos State.
Digitalization is very important, and that digitalization can be relevant if we intentionally, use the digital system, to respond to issues, and that it can be much more effective if it is being used to address sexual and gender-based violence. So that case study, it's one of the things we came to discuss, and beyond that, we're also going to look at some of the things that we have found as issues affecting women in Lagos State. We have had the opportunity of engaging with about 700 community leaders and women organizations, and they have talked about the issue of drug abuse in Lagos as one of the issues that made women to be vulnerable to sexual and gender-based violence. They've talked about child abuse as a common occurrence in Lagos State. The fact that female genital mutilation is also very common, in the state. It's also another issue. They talk about illegal migration, as a major issue, a major problem in Lagos State.
We can see how perpetrators of violence, are evolving to use technology to harm people, harm women. And I think it's very important for us, every one of us, we're all stakeholders in this particular particular battle, war against, sexual and gender-based violence. So this theme is very timely. It's very important for us to see how violence against women is morphing with the use of technology, and how we as stakeholders can also be more innovative in how we use technology.
I will take a break here, but still to come, Nigeria generates 697 billion naira from VAT in Q4, up by 11% from Q3. More details of the story shortly.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places, the Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Corruption not in my country.
Hello, Alhaji. Right now I'm in Abuja. No. Hello, Adamu. Right now I'm in Kano. Yes. When I get back, I'll just call you. Look, what is wrong with you? I'm talking on the phone and you are gesticulating and doing. What's wrong with you?
Daddy, where exactly are we as we speak?
Are you alright? This is Lagos.
But you just lied to someone that we are in Abuja.
Keep quiet. Who told you you can tell an elderly person is lying?
Daddy, you just lied. And by lying, you are raising corrupt children for the future of Nigeria. That is corruption, not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Welcome back. Now here is a recap of our top stories tonight. The presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, has inaugurated the legal team to challenge the controversial presidential election of February 25, 2023. The presidential candidate, while inaugurating the legal team at his campaign headquarters in Abuja, charged it to establish the claim of illegality in the February 25 poll and reclaim the mandate of the Nigerian people. U.S. President Joe Biden is set to relax COVID-19 testing restrictions for travelers from China. The decision to roll back the testing requirements came as cases, hospitalizations, and deaths were declining in China, and the U.S. had gathered better information about the surge. The restrictions were put in place on December 28 and took effect on January 5 amid a surge in infections in China after the nation sharply eased pandemic restrictions. At the time, U.S. officials also said the restriction was necessary to protect U.S. citizens and communities because there was a lack of transparency from the Chinese government about the size of the surge or the variants that were circulating within China. A spring booster vaccine against COVID-19 is to be offered to people at most risk of serious illness from the disease to protect them this summer. UK vaccine experts say it should be available to everyone over 75, care home residents, and everyone extremely vulnerable aged 5 and over. The Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization said hospital admission rates for COVID-19 in autumn 2022 showed that the risk of becoming seriously ill from coronavirus was noticeably higher in people over 75. We'll take a breather now and be back with more stories and business. To stay with us. Welcome back. Let's join Mary Kanu now for more stories and business. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you for that, Shade. Helen, welcome to Business News. The National Bureau of Statistics says Nigeria generated 697.3 billion naira as the aggregate revenue from value-added tax in the fourth quarter of 2022. The figure represents an increase of 71.9 billion naira compared to the 625.3 billion naira recorded in the third quarter of 2022. In its latest report on VAT collection for the fourth quarter of 2022 released on Wednesday, the Bureau said the figure grew by 11.51% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. A safety report by the International Air Transport Association has shown that a reduction in the number of fatal accidents was recorded in the global aviation sector in 2022 compared to 2021. The IATA 2022 safety report showed that there were 5 fatal accidents involving loss of life to passengers and crew last year compared to 7 in 2021 and an improvement on the 5-year average. IATA member airlines experienced one fatal accident in 2022 with 19 fatalities. We'll take a break and return with stock market review. And Nigeria's equities market closed in the green on Wednesday, rising by 0.35%. Investors gained 107 billion naira, which sees market capitalization rise from preceding day's low to 55,801 basis points and 30.4 trillion naira. Now, investors bought shares from Trans Nationwide Express and QTX as both equities rallied to top the this counter with over 30 cover gains. Now, in 3,293 deals, investors exchanged over 152 million shares valued at 3.5 billion naira. Now, despite today's gains, stocks remain under pressure as profit-taking activity continues and investors continue to trade cautiously in the market. A switch now to the global scene. It's another mixed trading day as the U.S. stocks wavered, attempting to recover from Tuesday's broad-based sell-off, which was spurred by comments from Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell hinting at the higher interest rates for longer. And that's why we can see that the Dow Jones is trading down at 0.33%. And that's the stock market review. Folashade, back to you.
Well, many thanks, Mary, for that update. And on the foreign scene, in commemoration of this year's International Women's Day, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has celebrated the achievements of all women girls across all walks of life. In a video, Guterres said International Women's Day is a call to action to stand with women who are demanding their fundamental rights at great personal cost. Speaking on the theme for this year, which is centered on the need for technology and innovation to advance gender equality, the UN chief added that the technology can expand pathways to education and opportunities for women and girls.
International Women's Day is a call to action. Actions to stand with women while demanding their fundamental rights at great personal cost. Action to strengthen protection against sexual exploitation and abuse. And action to accelerate women's full participation and leadership. This year's theme stresses the need for technology and innovation to advance gender equality. Technology can expand pathways to education and opportunities for women and girls, but it can also be used to amplify abuse and hatred. Today, women make up under a third of the workforce in science, technology, engineering and maths. And when women are underrepresented in developing new technologies, discrimination may be baked in from the start. That is why we must close the digital divide and increase the representation of women and girls in science and technology. Women's exclusion from the digital world has shaved an estimated $1 trillion from the GDP of low and middle income countries in the last decade, a loss that could grow to 1.5 trillion by 2025 without action. Investing in women uplifts all people, communities and countries. Let us work together across governments, the private sector and civil society to build a more inclusive, just and prosperous world for women, girls, men and boys everywhere.
In sports, FIFA Secretary General Fatma Samora has urged women to remain committed as the United Nations celebrate International Women's Day on March 6th. 8th, 2023. Samora was the first African and women to hold the position of FIFA Secretary General, is a trailblazer for diversity and gender equality. Speaking on women leadership, Samora charged them to be humble and interact with people regardless of their social or professional status.
I'm delighted to be sending you the teams who have qualified for the FIFA Women's World Cup for the first time ever in your country's history. My warm greetings today. The FIFA Women's World Cup is getting closer and excitement is building worldwide as the best 32 national women's football team will come together in the Southern Hemisphere, in Australia and New Zealand to battle it out for the most coveted prize in football, the FIFA Women's World Cup trophy. The FIFA Women's World Cup is the largest largest women's single sport event in the world, and in order to harness the global reach of the tournament among young girls and women, have created an inspirational slogan, Beyond Greatness. It will be the witnessing of the joys of girls and women as they look at the teams and see reflections of themselves, seeing you ladies who are mothers, sisters, students, and athletes, women they identify with excelling on the pitch. This will encourage the next generation of young girls and women to aim high, to aim big, to advocate for themselves and to take themselves beyond greatness on the pitch, but also in life.
And that's the size of our news bulletin. Many thanks for watching. I am Fola Shade Ogurinde. Bye for now. It's good to have you join me on the program. I am Mary Kanu. A week after the Supreme Court ordered the Nigerian government to allow the continued use of the old 200, 500 and 1,000 naira notes, President Muhammadu Buhari has countered that order. The president in a national broadcast on Thursday morning, while acknowledging the many difficulties that the new currency policy is causing Nigerians, approved the continued use of only the old 200 naira notes as a legal tender alongside the new 200 naira note, but this will only be for 60 days as orders by the president allowed the validity of the old 200 naira notes until the 10th of April 2023. President Buhari also said that in line with Section 20, Subsection 3 of the CBN Act of 2007, all existing old 1,000 and 500 naira notes remain redeemable at the CBN and designated points. The initial deadline to phase out the old notes was Friday, the 10th of February. The president's pronouncement comes as the Supreme Court had last week given an interim order for the continued use of all the old notes until it finally rules on a lawsuit brought by 3 northern states challenging the new currency redesign. In its sitting on Wednesday, the Supreme Court did not reverse that order, but the court adjourned the suit to February 22nd, while President Buhari His decision may have served as some form of respite amid the chaos caused by the CBN's Naira redesign policy. Some lawyers and civil society groups across the country have faulted the broadcast on the 200 Naira note as contempt of court. Now, to give more insights on the issue, legal expert Malaki Ogumadu joins me on the program. Thank you very much for joining me. First of all, I must ask what you think of the president's speech and its possible effect on the country. Do you think the president speaking to us will somehow assuage the frayed nerves of Nigerians? Should Nigerians generally expect better when it comes to the Naira going forward?
Well, I think my response would be that in so many respects and for so long, President Muhammadu Buhari has come so little, so short, and too late in the day regarding major national development, some of which have the tendency of undermining the security of this country. So why would it have taken him this long to be able to give a proper direction with respect to a major financial activity of a cardinal agency of government like the central bank? Let's be clear about it. The Central Bank Act recognizes the powers of the governor of the central bank to act in respect of monetary policy. But in this particular instance of withdrawal and change of the currency with the approval of the president, that is within the remit and powers of the central bank governor, with the approval of the president. All of those happen. Where the issue has always been now cascading into a national crisis is the implementation of that policy. It has come not with a human face. It has caused a lot of hardship, dislocation, and demobilization of the Nigerian people. So much so that for the first time in my life, I now hear that you could use Naira to buy Naira, in which case you are giving less the value of the money you seek to get. If you have no cash of your own, you will have to buy it at a higher rate. That for me was now. But what is more, it is that even with the policy they have conceived to be a good policy, based on the objective conditions that they wanted to check, but it has not worked out completely in the way that a manner that they conceived it. Now, when you realize that kind of situation, what do? You retreat. Now, it has taken riots. I'm not talking of protests. Riots from cities after cities before Mr. President. In short, people were reportedly killed in Benin yesterday. I am from Delta State. I just returned from Delta State. There are accounts of people who dropped dead on the queue waiting to be able to access their money in the bank. Very regrettably, even when you gain entrance at very risky circumstances and at great cost to your life, you are giving 5,000 naira. So the point I make is that Mr. President has decided to talk. And in a very, I'm not sure it was more than 20 minutes broadcast. We're not talking for a lengthy whole day broadcast, but to what extent has that now coincided with the responsibility of another arm of government, which is the judiciary, this time the habeas court, in trying to find a way around this situation? In many respects, and within the circle of the lawyers, there are people who hold the view, and rightly too in my view, that the president brokers has amounted to a contempt of court, in the sense that the Supreme Court was clear with respect to their earlier order, interlocutory order, ex parte order, and that order was extended in a way, and before the expiration of that extension, Mr. President has come to give another condition.
Now, before we get to the legal aspect of this, we saw you mentioned. Sorry to cut you. Before we get to the legal aspect of this, you mentioned the riots that have taken place in the country, and we saw something like this happen in 1984 on the Buhari-led junta. But now let's talk about the issue on ground. There are now 2 existing orders guiding the use of the naira in the country. One by the CBN authorizing the validity of all currencies until its next hearing, which was shifted to February 22nd, and that of President Buhari authorizing the use of only the 200 naira notes alongside the new notes. Which order supersedes the order?
Well, we are called a civilized nation because we're expected to conduct the affairs of this country according to rule and law. Where the rule of law no longer operates, but the rule of man, then clearly there are problems. Otherwise, this question would not have come. Ideally, when there is any form of disputation with respect to the policy or decision of state actors or government, and that dispute is submitted to a competent court of law, this time as permissible, being a dispute between and among states and the Federation, they proceeded advisedly to the Supreme Court. Once that dispute is apprehended, once the Supreme Court becomes seized of that dispute, from that moment, the orders and decisions of the court shall take precedence over every other. In short, and as a matter of law, it is almost inconceivable that while a matter is sub judice and being attended to in the Supreme Court of the land, the executive, being the other arm of government, is busy giving directives that contradict. There is no other recipe for anarchy. In short, people are now confused. Otherwise, the answer to your question is that once a directive, either by way of ruling or by way of order or by way of judgment or by way of decision, by a competent court of law, this time around, the apex court in the land is issued. Every person, every authority, every agency of government is bound. And on this score, I am referencing section 287, subsection 1, with respect to decisions of the Supreme Court. Ditto for Court of Appeal, high courts of the respective federative states. So it's not, except we are no longer in a civilized nation, which is now becoming debatable.
So in other words, you're trying to say, or what you're trying to say is that with all that we've seen play out, that this administration, the Buhari-led administration, has endangered the rule of law and brought the judiciary to disrepute. Is this what you're saying?
If that is not the case, why the chaos? Why are people running amok? Why is even the ruling political party talking at cross purposes? Why is the center not holding? Why do we not have a singular channel of decision and action? Why this cacophony of voices? What has happened to the coordination and cooperation of institutions of government with a harmonized view to promote peace and development and progress in the country? So I'm not trying to say, I'm saying that once a matter has become a subject of litigation and adjudication before a competent court of law, whatever that court comes out with becomes superior. Because whatever the court says becomes an order. It becomes a ruling. And by the Constitution, I have referenced section 287, section 1, 2, 3. Anyone and every institution and every citizen and every authority in this country is obligated under a duty to obey what the Supreme Court has said. No less the president. The president is a citizen of this country and he's not above the law. The law is as pronounced by the Supreme Court. So if we are not comfortable with that, then we are beckoning at anarchy. We are looking at the last bus stop before the kind of violence you see from city to city.
Now, some have come out. We've seen lawyers and civil society organizations, they've come out to fault the implementation of the redesigned policy by the CBN. Although, according to the Apex Bank, this move was made to curb vote buying ahead of the elections and somehow reduce inflation. Do you think there should be a time frame for the completion of this implementation?
Well, this is the need. I mean, this question speaks to the need for a well-thought-out policy. I mean, you cannot, in good conscience, be charitable to the government as represented by the central bank in this instance. You cannot fault the motive and objective of this policy. In the sense that, and we have even begun to witness it, talking about engendering a cashless society, dealing with the incidence of illicit transfer of money amongst terrorist groups, talking about strengthening the economy, and deprive vote buyers, albeit politicians, from having access to the volume of money with which they corrupt the system. These are credible masterstrokes. However, you may have a great idea, a beautiful idea, but if you lack the mechanisms and strategies of operationalizing that idea in a way that doesn't cause social disruption, it will turn out as though you never thought through that idea. This is precisely the problem with this matter. Come to think about it, we were told that the actual volume of naira rolling into trillions needed to have been reprinted was not made available. In short, it is almost 1/3 of what was needed that was printed. That kind of indiscretion in managing a very fragile economy like ours, suffering and smarting from serious bashing of so many economic indices that are not favorable for growth and development, became one mistake too many. Because as it has now shown, it has completely disrupted the entire chain of livelihood in Nigeria.
All right.
Where people have money to work hard, but cannot access their money.
Like
So
you
I'm
clearly
clear
pointed
about
out, the issues abound. You've clearly pointed this out, but I'm afraid that's how much we can take right now. Well, Malaki Ogumadu, legal expert, thank you for your time and your insights. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Well, we'll take a break now and be right back. To stay with us. Welcome back. Now, in a few days, Nigerians will go to the polls to elect new leaders who will steer ship for the next administration. However, there are doubts, apprehension, as well as optimism over the readiness of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) for the exercise, given the concerns that abound. In the midst of all the apprehension, the INEC chairman, Mahmoud Yakubu, has reassured Nigerians and the international community of the Commission's commitment to safeguarding the integrity of the electoral process and delivering the best election ever in the history of Nigeria. Speaking recently with the Commonwealth Pre-Election Assessment Mission in Abuja, Yakubu said his commission is on top of anticipated challenges. Now, last week, INEC, through its National Commissioner and Chairman of Information and Voter Education Committee, Festus Okoye, debunked reports that the Commission has contracted the logistics of the 2023 general election materials to the National Union of Road Transport Workers in Lagos State and the Lagos State Parks Management Committee, led by Musiliu Akinsonya, popularly known as MC Oluomo. The Commission also announced that elections will not be held in 240 polling units nationwide due to absence of registrants. Now, joining me on the program to assess INEC's preparedness for the 2023 elections is political affairs analyst Olufemi Lawson. It's good to have you join me on the program. Now, INEC has continuously given assurances that it is committed to safeguarding the integrity of the country's electoral process. Now, do you see INEC poised to deliver a credible election? And are there indices to indicate INEC's preparedness or otherwise?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. If you look at the preparation of INEC for months, even before where we are now, you will come to agree that INEC has been committed to delivering a credible election come February 25 and subsequent one in March 11. INEC has not only been up and doing or up to the task in the area of the provision of the needed logistics and manpower for the towards this election, but it has also demonstrated the capacity to engage stakeholders in the media, in the civil society, and every other important structures that are needed to enhance the capacity of the Commission towards delivering a credible election. So we must give kudos to INEC under the current leadership for the innovations and preparations that has really shown that, or that has given a lot of hope that we'll have this election come February 25.
Well, Nigerians have been looking forward to this election, but somehow there have been reports of illegal possession of the permanent voters' cards, the PVCs, in the country. Just recently, over 1,000 PVCs were recovered from about 516 illegal immigrants from Chad, Niger, and Togo who were arrested in Kaduna State. Now, would you fault INEC's process of the PVC registration and collection?
INEC may not be solely blamed for the proliferation of our electoral system by people who ordinarily are not eligible to vote, particularly those foreigners, many of whom are illegal migrants into the country. But when you have a country without a clear-cut social security base, as we speak today, Nigeria cannot really give a definite figure of the number of our citizens. There is no social security number for citizens. Everyone can just walk into any institution of government and participate as a Nigerian. You realize that almost in every neighborhood today, you find foreigners from Chad, from Niger, from Togo, from Benin, doing one sort of domestic work or the other. And these are the categories of people that have found their way into registering to participate in our elections. So we must commend the security agencies for being able to fish out these elements who are not eligible to vote in our elections, but have found their way to picking up, getting registered and picking up our permanent voters card. And what is important is that INEC and the security agencies should look deeper, more especially on election days, into scrutinizing the identities of voters to ensure that foreigners are not allowed to vote in our election. And also, it is also important to say this, that irrespective of how much people try to produce fake permanent voters card, they cannot be used if we are going to go by the efficiency of the Beavers machine, which is now the tool being employed by INEC to conduct this election. So people can just wake up and produce cards in the name of PVC. But the truth is that these PVCs are programmed to work with the bimodal voter certification machine, and without the cards being authentic, it cannot in any way work, and such persons cannot be accredited for our election. INEC has gone further than we think in terms of technology in ensuring that our elections are credible, they have integrity, and of course, protect the integrity of our democracy.
It seems like you have just commendations for INEC, but there is a disturbing concern with the recent ruling of the Osun State Election Tribunal that annulled the result declared by INEC, citing over voting in about over 700 polling units. Now, the Commission has clarified that the late submission of the final list of voters is the reason for the confusion. But I must ask what steps you think can be taken to avoid such kinds of cases in these general elections.
It's one of the two states where the beavers was perverted in the conduct of election by INEC. So we may not have expected that the Commission would have delivered on the efficiency of beavers 100% in that election. But the lessons that have been learned from Ekiti, I'm not sure is that even with beavers, there could still be loopholes, there could still be shortcomings on the part of in the area of application, computation of votes, and the like. And that is why this election is going to be an opportunity for INEC and other stakeholders to improve on the capacity to ensure that votes count, accreditations are properly done. So I don't think it was a big minus for INEC if having conducted election in thousands, tens of thousands of polling units, and only about 700 or thereabout were found to be faulty in the area of the outcome of accreditation compared to election results. So I think it is not enough to call INEC low. It's only important that we ask INEC to learn from the lessons that have been exposed, that they have been exposed to by the virtue of the outcome of the Osun governorship election, in order to improve on the future election, particularly the forthcoming presidential election in the country.
All right, now political affairs analyst Olufemi Lawson, thank you for your time and your contribution.
It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, that's our program this week. Thank you for watching. I am Mary Kanu. Bye for now.
If I die fighting for justice, I will have no regret. I live to fight for justice, and that's what I will do. I'm Rashidat Mohammed. I'm the principal partner of Rashida Mohammed & Co., a female law firm founded by me, which happens to be the only law firm in Sokoto, Kebbi, Zamfara. I'm an active member of FIDA, International Federation of Female Lawyers. The main reason why I set up this place is to advocate for women and children to render free legal services to less privileged, vulnerable ones. I've seen series of gender-based violence, and I've not seen enough people coming to speak against it. Issue of gender-based violence is not about being an illiterate or not. Even educated people are being violated. Once somebody's child is raped, even if you punish the perpetrator, you cannot return back her virginity. It's a lifetime scar. The reason why most victims don't come out to talk about what happened is because they don't have support. After reporting the case, nobody cares about them. There's no love or concern towards them. In order to encourage others to come out to speak against violence or child abuse, let me make them as part of my family. So any victim that I've helped, from the day I help you, becomes part of my family, and I visit them every 2 weeks. I want my children to see a Nigeria where women's voice will be heard, even children will have the right to speak for themselves. I want my children to grow up in a Nigeria where women and men are given equal opportunities, equal access to education, job opportunities, political and economic opportunities. For women and girls, I'm calling on all of us to be an advocate for ourselves. We've been talking about gender-based violence for a very long time, but I've hardly seen people coming to act against it. So I want us to stop talking about it. Let's be acting about it. If you see something, say something. Stop stigmatizing those that are victims of violence.
Thank you for coming, sir.
Yes.
I was expecting the noise.
Noise?
The siren and everything.
Can't I have a break even for a few hours from these sirens as well?
Now I see why you want to come back here now.
Yes. You can see this place is more friendly, isn't it, than Abuja?
Wow. So how much do you miss it when you're not here?
Well, very much so. That's why when I come, I keep my eyes very wide open, as if it was the first time I'm coming. These fruits bearing trees are growing very fast. Yes.
So you're counting the days now?
I am counting the days, not even the months.
What
amazes me that if you know him now, to me, is the same Buhari I knew, 1953. He's a good listener. He will accommodate you, listen to you, and he will never fight back.
If you are not hardworking, if you are not honest, if you are not dedicated to your duty, don't come near Mr. President Buhari. He has a very long face, but you have to catch up. He looks after the welfare of his staff, especially his close aides. He makes sure everything is well or is fine at home front because he asks questions. That's how is everything going on? And whenever there's anything, he takes your problem as his own problem.
The ordinary people are his friends. And then Kaduna, you come and see them in his sitting room. They are not only in the sitting room, but they are on his dining table, eating with him.
There wasn't any day you go to Sultan Road #1 that you will not see people queuing, and that he will not attend to you.
When he goes to his farm, the only thing you will know that he is not with them is because of his white dress and height. He mingles with them. When we are going to the mosque, we enter the normal place where other people are and join the queue from where we find it. We don't overstay our queue. And normally, during Christmas or Salah, the father buys a dress for his children. And from 1996, when I started working with him, up to this year, he will buy me Salah dress. Every Salah. So along with his children. So I'll have my own children, my own Salah dress.
When my mom passed away, we were going to hold a commendation service for my mother in Lagos, and I just sent out some cards. I sent one to his house in Kaduna. Lo and behold, on the day an SUV just drove into the premises of the hall, and I went to welcome whoever was in it. When they opened the door and I saw him, I was shocked. So you could make it? He laughed. And he stayed with us throughout that service, a Christian service. A man they used to call a Muslim bigot. He stayed throughout that Christian service. It was one of the things that convinced me that the man was not who people were saying he was.
I first met him in 2007 because they were trying to meet pastors who could also, and not only pray along with them, but who could identify with him to remove the toga of Islamic fundamentalism, which he has been labeled with for too long a time. I saw him as a forthright person, an incorruptible leader, and one that was ready to bring about discipline to our society.
He's a very self-effacing person, also very witty and humorous when he's comfortable in the environment he is. He can be surprisingly shy when he's not comfortable. He's amongst people who is not accustomed to being around, and he can live in his own skin and say very little. But when he's comfortable, he can be a pot of good humor.
I got to know him from about 1976 when he was the Minister for Petroleum. And I was working in the presidency. You know, he has this expectation of people to take their responsibility seriously. He gives you an assignment, he expects you to carry it out.
Mr. President.
President Buhari, you walk into his office, see him reading, let's say, a memo, he will not even notice you are there. He puts in his 100 until after he reaches the end of what he's reading. He does not even know somebody is.
We first met January 1953. Buhari, as a child, was quiet, humble, and reserved.
There's one thing I also learned, that you lost your father very early. How was that growing up?
Yes, well, it was a difficult time. I didn't know my father, so I was an orphan, which means I didn't enjoy the protection of a father. School and 6th secondary school of electing people.
His father passed away when he was 4 years old. His father had 3 wives. Muhammad was the youngest.
He was brought up by his senior brother, who was a teacher. He is one of our teachers. So he had a good home training under the care of his senior brother.
President Buhari is my uncle. I'm his nephew. My name is Amandaura. His mother, Hajia Zulehat, whose child was Muhammad Buhari. My father was his guardian, but it was tough for him, but tough for us also. Life was very tough in those days. You went to school in the morning, you came back and you go to the bush, collect firewood for the night reading. We had no lamps in those days. We used firewood to light, and we had slates, which we wrote chapters of the Quran and read. And so you have one chapter, you read it during the session, and then tomorrow morning you wash it, and another chapter or a piece thereof is written, and you learn it by heart.
So when I was away from home, I think I was constrained to behave myself because there was nobody to rescue me. So I was behaving myself. As I said, I became a class monitor, I became a junior prefect, I became senior prefect, I became a head boy.
You know, boys will be boys. You will transgress on occasions. You will be late for school, refuse to attend lessons sometime, go out to play, and that will be severely punished. Whoever did that will be punished. And the teachers were, I wouldn't say harsh, but they were disciplined. They taught us discipline. If you transgress,
There was discipline in schools then. There's corporal punishment. And I think to a certain extent, it molded the minds of the children and so on and so forth.
Our generation was very lucky. Our teachers were absolutely committed and dedicated. And they treated us like their own children. If you do well, you are praised. You are brought before the classroom, your work was shown and you are praised. If you don't perform, you are again brought before the classroom, stripped and flogged on the buttocks.
And there are no way I can forget school, because what we call the teacher I see there, called Mala Abdul, is a very strict person. And he doesn't spare the rod. We call it Bulala. Really. We don't like the rainy season approaching because we have to go to school farm. You wouldn't be late there, just like a classroom. And if you are late from 6 to 2, Bulalas on your buttocks. And you have to remove your shorts so that you get the message proper. Among the teachers, I could only again remember our Arabic teacher. No matter how hot it is, he comes in with a turban. And every week we are given to recite part of the Quran. Every week. And the only thing we can do with the body is to report sick if we haven't recited the part given that week. So we report sick. But even if you report sick, then you are stopped from going to a breakfast break until you recite the verse you are given in the class.
I'm sure you didn't get too much Bilala because you are always like a leader in class.
You will be very surprised. I got a lot because I try to avoid going to the school farm. And if you miss it, you are not allowed to go on breakfast break. So you will have no break until the school is closed. But what I do between the first whistle and the last one, I go over the wall of the school, rush to home, and sometimes I'm eating up to the time I'm going to the classroom. And no one could forget those days. Trying to be clever by half.
How did a boy from Daura end up in Liverpool, straight out of secondary school?
I was picked from here, and then the whole of the north, again, I was the only person picked to go to UK, recommended to go to UK, Elder Dempster. Elder Dempster line. Were given some slots for children from each region, from the north, from the west, from the east then, and from Lagos. 4 of us were taken. And that's how I managed. You can see the system then. Here in Katsina province, we are the junior part. In Daura here, but I was picked, from the whole of the north to go to UK for holidays. That was my first visit to the UK. And what struck me when we arrived at Liverpool, we went to the center of the Liverpool. Some of the cities in London, then there was a central roundabout in the town. From there, you can go to other places. And when we went down about break time, I saw people coming out. Everybody well dressed up, just the way you are, but almost 3-piece, handsome, healthy. And then I reflected a street back here in Katsina on my school days. When I'm going to the mosque on Fridays, blind men, cripples, leopards, people in rags begging for what to eat. So I say, God, how can we understand? That impression is still there in me. You look at people coming out as if they made it up themselves. Very well dressed, handsome. Underdevelopment is terrible. That's the only thing I can say.
He was interested in science at the time. He was thinking of becoming a doctor. He was born in 1942. Sort of the end of colonial era in Nigeria. They didn't really have a medical school yet at ABU. It turned out not to be a career path for him, although it was an interest. When he was finishing up secondary school, the Emir of Katsina, who was the neighboring Emir to Daura, was encouraging young men from the north with leadership potential to go into the officers' training.
The Emir of Katsina then, he sent Hassan. It was no longer a profession for the poor. My height was a disadvantage to me. Then there were cadets only in government colleges. Zaria, Kepi in the north, I don't know how many in the south. The provincial secondary school, which was my school, they were not given army cadets. But the Emir of Katsina wanted to make a case to late Sardauna that he wanted a cadet school, a cadet in his secondary school in the state. So the Sardauna told the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister told the Minister of Defense. And then Katsina had a cadet, and then a retired ex-World War II veteran from Katsina was made to be in charge of the training. Just because of my height or something, I was picked to be the sergeant. So from there, I was impressed by the military discipline and so on. So when I left, I just went straight to the army.
And he was very attracted with the idea of uniform, discipline, and extracurricular activities like night exercise and drills that attracted him very much. And he was eventually, plus he had a few friends like Shehu Yaradua, may God have mercy on him, and Jega, Emir of Gondu, and Magoro. They were his classmates, and they all started, so that the hard instinct also had an influence in his decision to join the army. And he has never regretted it since.
It must have been something for him. I mean, he went into the army to be a soldier. Then there was a political crisis, the coup and the counter-coup, then the civil war.
This is where the value of fighting for country comes in, because at every point of his military training, he was taught, you fight for your country, you die for your country, and you do it with honor. And so the idea of splitting the country just sent shockwaves through these people. Even though they knew some of these counterpart officers on the other side, they never saw it as Buhari never saw it as an Igbo thing, as an ethnic thing. He always saw it as the rebels and the attempt to split the country.
His battalion, the 2nd Battalion Nigerian Army, he was number 2 in the battalion. They were the first to fire shots. A battle in which they were advancing, and the opponents, the rebels, shot at them, and the fellow on his right was killed, the fellow on his left was killed, but he was unscathed. It was dreadful, dreadful. I was so afraid reading the dispatches to see the casualties, and I always pored over the casualties to see if his name was involved.
The Biafran Civil War was one where you didn't know you were going to survive. They were hacking their way through the rainforest, which was very different than the dry savanna in the north. And his men had to be sure to take health precautions, change their socks, not get fungus in their feet and things. So he was always concerned with the welfare of his men. I think even his critics would say this, that this was a young officer who took his leadership seriously.
And if I tell you that I walked across Nigeria from Benue State virtually up to the sea when we were fighting the civil war, the 30 months in the civil war, I was always in the front within the small arms range for the 30 months. I was never relieved. But when I was sent to India and the United States subsequently to do my training, people were saying, why always Buhari? But when I was being sentenced to the front, nobody asked why didn't they bring me back to their headquarters where they have time to drink and dance. This is Nigeria.
There was a bloodless coup today in Nigeria, which is Black Africa's biggest and richest nation and the world's 8th largest oil producer. The overthrow of strongman Major General Yakubu Gowon.
Fellow Nigerians, events of the past few years have indicated that despite our great human and material resources,
So I heard you met the then Colin Buhari when he was governor of the Northeast.
Way back in the early 70s or mid 70s, I was a young student, aged about 18, 19, and he was then governor of the Northeast. He was military governor of the Northeast, and I was a young student activist as the Secretary General of the Students' Union in the then Northeast College of Arts and Sciences. And when Murtala was killed, I led a delegation of students to protest the killing of Murtala, demanding that the coup plotters be brought to book and be tried. Well, he was quite a very serious-looking military officer, and my impression of him was that he was somebody that was destined for the future to become an effective leader in this country.
General Shehu Yaradua, may God bless him, may Allah have mercy on him, told me how Buhari was made Minister of Petroleum in Obasanjo's government. They set the group who were naming ministers and governors and so on, and they said, who is the most honest and the most serious among the officers of the Nigerian army? The one with the most integrity, and they honed in on Buhari. So they appointed him Minister of Petroleum, and they all thought he would not get his hands dirty with oil money.
Fraud, indiscipline, corruption, squandermania, misuse and abuse of public office for self or group aggrandizement, which had assumed debilitating proportions in the last few years, will be dealt with ruthlessly, no matter whoever may be involved.
It wasn't easy in the sense that I noticed a lot of things were going wrong, personally. People were looking for office just to be materially endowed or empowered. I thought it was wrong. I think leadership is a sacrifice.
It was clear to the senior officers, including Buhari, that the junior officers were going to do something if they didn't. And the junior officers were taking their cue from next door in Ghana, where Jerry Rawlings had just taken over, a young flight lieutenant in the Air Force, and lined up and shot the previous senior military people who had been ruling the country. So the senior military people in Nigeria thought we'd better stabilize the situation. We don't want another, Jerry Rawlings situation here.
Buhari was not terribly keen. He wasn't terribly keen about it, but there was nobody to lead the change of government, nobody with the credibility and the integrity to, to convince the country that a change was necessary. It wasn't his choice.
The need to emphasize self-discipline and leadership by good example. Begin by drawing public attention to little but important everyday manifestations of indiscipline, such as
try to impose discipline on the country. So it was a kind of a culture clash between military culture and the Nigerian grassroots culture, if I may say.
The night of the coup, you were with him, right?
I was in Lagos and we had dinner and then we talked until about 11 p.m. Then I went back to my digs. We had no idea, no inkling whatever, something was afoot. In the morning, one staff came and told me, look, there has been a change of government. Your uncle has been deposed. The coups in Nigeria have a history of being very violent and very bloody. So I pray to God that they don't kill him or injure him or something of that nature.
The people who know him well said he was aware, but the only way he could have prevented it was to execute 6 or 8 of the senior officers, and he wasn't willing to do this. I think he prevented a more serious situation, because when you start killing officers, who knows where it's going to lead. Now he's down in Benin. He's under house arrest. He's living in a cottage with guards. He figured that if Babangida wanted to kill him, he would be dead by now. So it was really a question of just marking time and using it to realize, well, this is the end of his military career, and it was possible for people to visit him, but only with the permission of General Babangida, who is now in charge.
He was detained for 3.5 years. I went to see him regularly every month in Akure and in Benin. Very restrictive, and it's very boring, and he didn't know what eventually the government would do with him, and he was only released on the death of his mother. But throughout, I think his spirit never for a moment broke, because so many people gave me messages to tell him to say, please write to Babangida and tell him, since he has taken over, let him go. He said, no, I'll never write to him. I'll never talk to him. His spirit never broke throughout the 3.5 years.
Even though Jonathan Abacha was part of the military elite that toppled his government, out of patriotism, to save the government, he accepted to serve as the chairman against the advice of many of his close associations. He said, no, it is not about Abacha, it is not about toppling of the government, it is about the country. We need to save this country. We need the infrastructure has decayed. So he accepted the chairman, and quickly he assembled some professionals largely young men, and we went into work. If you go down even to our hospitals to check, we see, if you see linens that are curtains, you know, shielding the beds, besides the few procurements, you will see PTF inscribed. If you see the roads today and you go through from north to south, there hasn't been any corner you will go through without seeing the project of the PTF. If you see hospitals with equipments, basically even in the theaters today, you will see that you will have the little, you know, inscription of the PTF.
Nearly every week, some delegation from different parts of Nigeria were coming to see us in Kaduna, saying, look, you have to come and take care of have to come and lead this government. We're drifting. We're going back to the 1983 period. And he resisted this for a long time until both political parties sent emissaries to tell him that if he wanted, they will give him the ticket to run for the presidency. He succumbed to the pressure.
On Thursday, 26th of April, 2002, we went to Daura, where he registered as a card-carrying member of the then APP, which is the second largest party after PDP at that time. I think it was 1,145,359. Yeah, that was his number in the APP.
I received a phone call, and they said I should help them look for a vice presidential candidate. That's Christians from the South. We couldn't make any headway, and we decided to lay down. Until January 15 at 12 noon, I received a phone call from the general. He said, I prayed my own way, and I want you to pray. I would like you to be my running mate. My first response was, thanks, but no thanks, sir, because I'm heading a group, and I've given them my word that I will neither join partisan politics or seek an elective office. But even within the group, they said, you have been positioning us for days. We are now saying you must take this. Long story short, by the time I called, Pastor Adeboye called everyone, contacted this and that, the rest is history. I had to team up with him to become his running mate. And it was such an experience that I cannot forget.
Character, credibility, competence, integrity, those are the issues. And by the grace of God, 2011, we will have a new president.
All the three elections were rigged, massively rigged. Let me give you an example. 2007, after our lawyer made his submission to the Supreme Court, I went to his office and I asked for the results of just one of the states. He gave me results of Imo State. I went over carefully over the results, and then they just say, PDP, that's Umar Yar'Adua, 25,000. Buhari, 5,000. Round figures throughout, round figures. The winner of the election, Umar Yar'Adua, himself said the elections were faulty, if you recall. After you know you won in 2003, rigged. You know you won in 2007, rigged. You know you won in 2011, changed, rigged. What will you do?
Spain is the third and last one for me, since after it, I will not present myself again for election into the office of the president.
So he didn't break down in tears. He just broke down in pity for the system, for the country, and he said, I'll never do it again, never do it again.
So when this thing happened in 2011, it was worse than what had happened in 2007. It was worse than what had happened in 2003. So it is this thing, it is not the bitterness that he lost that worried him. And then he said, well, it will appear now nothing is going to change this thing. It's like, well, it's a country of over 150 million. I have tried my best. I have made my own contribution. My contribution is not recognized, and surely it's better to keep off from this.
This is his eldest daughter, Magajia. She suffered all her life with sickle cell disease, and then a confluence of events. A few days with the announcement, she also died. So that shook him very much. But I would say that the death of his daughter shook him more than the loss of the election.
That is what they call sickle cell anemia. There are people who are SA, there are people who are SS. So I think when the developed countries found about this sickle cell disease, they tried to stop marriage between AS or SS so that they don't have this sickle cell anemia. My first wife, my late first wife, unfortunately, I think she is SA or AS, and I'm AS. So my two children, my first daughter and my first son, happened to be SS, and they died of it. It was hard, but when I gave to my second wife, I asked who introduced her to me that she must be AA, so that if my child picked the S from me, he could only pick S from A from her. So AS is not normally susceptible to the anemia.
So in 2013-2014, you decided to team up with the other opposition parties. How did that come about?
The PDP. We are so confident that nobody could remove them. And I think they just ignored even being careful. So we persuaded the other parties. The CPC, Congress for Progressive Change, which I was leading, the ACN from Southwest mostly, ABGA from Southeast geopolitical zones. I said, until we came together, there was no way we could remove PDP. I persuaded them. They agreed. Aswaju, Tinubu,
From the north, from CPC, this was myself. And then from the southeast, Abga, Rochas, Okorocha. So we got people from various parties to come together.
Now you had a strong opposition party, but you almost got killed before the election.
I think Kwankwaso was very generous. He gave me an armored vehicle, a Land Rover. He said I should be using it because he believes that the competition I am about to, I am going on, I think there are people who really wouldn't like to compete with me. They would like to eliminate me. I said, okay. So I had to go to Kano, and I was using that Jeep. And a vehicle near the secretariat, federal secretariat in Kaduna, wanted to overtake us. My escort stopped them. But before we go on that overhead bridge, which was parallel to our filling station on the right as you are leaving Kaduna for Zaria, they're just below the thing. And when I looked, I saw the pieces of human beings. People who have been blasted by the bomb. The chap we were traveling with in the car on my left was thrown on my left because the bag, you know, the crash bag which the vehicle have, some of them, the one on my side was blown. The one on his side, I think, was not blown, so he was thrown on my left. And when I looked, I saw blood on my trousers and on my gown. But none of us, the two people in the vehicle and two of us behind, four of us, none of us were injured. But somehow I saw blood because of the number of people killed outside and because of the bomb. And I came out. I was concerned with the dead people, but some people stopped a vehicle, pushed me inside and drove me home. And that was the end of it. That's how efficient the Nigerian security agents are up to today.
It is now my pleasure to hand over the certificate of return as prepared by the National Convention Planning Committee to the winner of the All Progressives Congress presidential primary, General Muhammadu Buhari, retired.
Throughout the campaigns, and we went around in buses a lot, you know. We traveled from state to state, you know. And I recall in particular, we were at I think it was in Zamfara, where we saw these young people, and this always happened, of course, pressing themselves against the window of the bus that were traveling, you know, shouting, say Baba, you know, Baba, Oyoyo, and all of that. And he said, look at the faces of these young people. He says the expectations are high, very, very high. He says, and they expect us to do magic the moment we get into office. You know, look at all of them.
Here in Kaduna, we voted for General Muhammadu Buhari, not because he's a northerner or a Muslim, but because we believe he's going to bring change. He's going to stop the insecurity, the corruption, and the callousness and the impunity.
that Muhammadu Buhari of APC, having satisfied the requirements of the law and scored the highest number of votes, is hereby declared the winner and is returned elected.
I, Muhammad Buhari, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that I will preserve...
Well, don't forget that I tried 3 times. 2003, I think 2007, and 2011. And I ended up in Supreme Court 3 times. The first time, I went to address the pressmen and some Nigerians that were very curious. I was expecting sympathy, but the group laughed at me. So I said, okay, God day. And God sent technology. With permanent voters card, PVC, it's very difficult, to do what politicians used to do in Nigeria.
Well, some of us will claim credit to the fact that we were popular, but key is the character of our candidate. First, his character was essential to salvage the country. The country was in so much crisis, financially, security-wise, in every ramification.
This is the victory that is completely due to the support of the people. The normal elites, those who normally decide things, were all against this movement, and it came to victory. And I knew the country needed Buhari, and it has got it now. It is one of the best moments in my life. I didn't know I was going to be part of the government, but the fact that Buhari has won was just enough for me as a cause for happiness for this nation.
I remember that very, very day when the announcement was made. He from his office in lobby to upstairs, he came down to my office, and I look at him, in the very, he was looking in the ceiling in very pensive mood. After some 1 or 2 minutes, I said, "Sir, I would not like to congratulate you. I would rather pity you." He said, "Thank you. Thank you." So we went out, back to his office.
He is a man of inflexible integrity. He is also a very simple man, a very religious man, and also dedicated to Nigeria. If he has political views, is that Nigeria together is the best for all the peoples.
He's a man of his words. He's a man of honor. He's a man of courage. He's a man of uprightness. He's a no-nonsense man. He has never, for once that I know him, done anything that will advance his selfish interest, either for himself as a person, for friends, for family.
He believes in the ultimate goodness of each and every Nigerian, including those of us who work with him. Yes, he will discuss challenges with you, but ultimately he always believes that you will do the right thing.
Muhammad Buhari, he listens a lot. He is not too much in a hurry to take decisions, and he is also very considerate. So Nigeria is a very complex place. You need to take measured decisions because every decision you take will impact on the lives of people. So, but he is a very, very thorough leader. There are so many adjectives you can use to describe Buhari, but truly, he is a leader whose time has come, and he has led this country very, very well.
Under normal circumstances, the leader will probably be sending his people or be asking you to do this for him. Buhari has never sent anybody to me in the last 7 years to do anything for him or for the person.
I've had the privilege of serving 7 Nigerian presidents in my public career. The styles of leadership are different, the circumstances are different, but as a boss, he supports, he gives you the resources to do your work. You can say anything about him or his policies, but nobody doubts his integrity and his commitment to ensure that public resources are very well managed and that he cares about all parts of the country, including those that may not have voted for him, conspicuously not voted for him in several elections that he has undergone in this country.
His driver took me from his house to go to Governor El-Rufai's house. And when we got to El-Rufai's house in Kaduna, his driver said, "Daddy," he was referring to me, "I'd like you to pray with me." I said, "I beg your pardon." He said, "I call you Daddy." I said, "I do not pray the Muslim prayer. I can only pray for you as a Christian." He said, "I'm a Christian. I'm a member of Ekwa Church and I'm born again. I've been driving him for 10 years. This is the 3rd or so electoral process that I've driven him." I said, "You are a Christian?" He said, "Yes." I prayed with him. That was very shocking to me. Second thing that I received as a shocker, a serious shock, we did the first flag off in Kaduna. It was such a mammoth crowd. And if anyone we pushed that day, there would be a serious stampede. And then after the flag off, we got to his home and he staggered. And he said, "Jesus Christ of Nazareth." I said, "Excuse me, sir?" Because I would have said, "Is that a swear word?" And he looked at me and said, "Pastor, you don't have monopoly of Jesus Christ." I said, "Okay." I calmed down, I left it. Then we were in Abuja. And early morning I was going to his hotel apartment, Presidential Suite at Transcorp Hilton, and I met his bodyguards at the door. And one of them said, "Good morning, sir." "Good morning, Daddy." I said, "Why do you call me Daddy?" He said, "You are our grandfather, actually, because our pastor is your son in the faith." And I said, what kind of a man is this? Never at once try to hinder my faith or to try to say, to be irritated by me. And all around them now were Christians.
So how do you cope with Abuja if Daura is noisy sometimes?
No, Abuja, I'm effectively protected by security and COVID-19. You see, security wouldn't allow people to be seeing me. They said because of COVID. So I am thanking the security and COVID.
Where do you find the energy? You'll be 80 in December.
Yes.
You walked from the mosque today. You walked almost an hour now. So where do you find this energy? I mean, I'm younger and I'm tired.
Yes. If you were a village man like me, I think you would have been stronger.
There's a crazy one that was going around at one time that you are not Buhari. Did you hear about that one?
Yes, people said I'm somebody from Sudan. They even mentioned the name. I didn't bother. Nigerians, when they don't understand things, they create their own mysterious way of explaining themselves.
Does it help that you have your sense of humor to find those things funny?
No, it's not funny because those who are advocating or who are making those statements, they just want to be cheeky. They want to distract attention from the main issue. Our main issue is do the infrastructure, make people aware that they need to work hard
to live well. They just can't, enjoy life without earning the respect of their communities and so on.
After you leave the presidency,
yes,
what are you going to miss the most about the presidency?
I wonder if I'm going to miss much. I think I'm being harassed. I believe myself that I'm trying my best, but still my best is not good enough, because there are people around that think that they can intimidate authorities to get what they want instead of going through established systems, and earn whatever they want to earn. There are still people who behave, who are clever by half, let me put it that way. When I left secondary school, I came back here. This is my base. Coup, counter-coup, civil war, coup, counter-coup, detention. I have gone through it all. I have tried hard enough. I think I have tried hard enough. The results are obvious, and I'm praying very hard that I will end up well.
विदेश नजाने भन्दा नि आमाले चाहिँ पठाइदिनु भा जानुपर्छ धेरै कमाउनु पर्छ भनेर चाहिँ पठाउनु भा अनि साथीहरुसँग गयो साथीहरुसँगै नागरिकता बनायो सँगै पासपोर्ट बनायो अनि पछि जाने बेलामा एक्लै पर्यो म विदेश गएर चाहिँ घरको काममा भनेर पठाउनु भा घरको काममै परेको थियो अनि म त कति गएर बस्थे अब केही आउँदैन काम गर्ने साथीहरु चाहिँ कोही पनि थिएन म एक्लै त्यसरी 4.5 वर्ष कटायो 4 वर्षको स्यालेरी मैले पुरा पठाइदिए आउँदाखेरि चाहिँ 10 रुपैयाँ पैसा माग्दैन आमाले छैन भन्नुभयो कुन मेन्डी मान्छेहरुले नराम्रो गर्न थाले के छोरीको जात हुर्केर बस्यो यस्तो त्यस्तो भनेर भन्न थाल्यो अनि थाहा पाउने हो यो नि विदेश गएर आओ भन्छ तर गएर के गर्ने मेरो गएको र नगएको एउटै छ भएन यतिकै बस्नु भन्दा एउटा केही गरेर बस्ने भनेर अनि म सिलाइबाट चाहिँ म गर्ने छु भनेर चाहिँ मैले भनेको थिएँ हजुरहरुलाई म तालिममा भर्ना भए है सुरु दिनमा म गए अब सबैजना पढेको छ है अनि म चाहिँ पहिले डर लाग्थ्यो के लेख्न नि नआउने जति दिन गयो उति दिन मनमा आँटा आउने के नआएको र आउने भयो अनि त्यसबाटै सुरु गरेर यहाँसम्म आए ठ्याक्क 1 वर्ष भयो पसल राखेर 4-5 वर्ष समय हुन्छ आफूले सिलाइबाटै गरेको कहिले चाहिँ त 100-200 गरे नि हुन्छ अलिअलि आफूलाई मन लागेको ठाउँमा खर्च गर्न अब बच्चाले अब भोग लाग्यो भन्ने बित्तिकै आफ्नोबाट गोलीबाट झिकेर दिन केही बाध्यदै जान परेछ भने सकेसम्म राम्रो आफूले बुझेर अब पढिसकेको छ हैन आफूलाई पढेर सबै कुरा भोगिसकेको छ सकेसम्म राम्रोसँग बुझेर यो तालिमबाट चाहिँ धेरै कुराहरु थाहा पाएँ विदेश जाँदा यसरी जाने यसरी नजाने सबै प्रमाण आफ्नो साथमा राखेर जाने त्यो बारेमा चाहिँ थाहा भएको मलाई यही ठिकै लाग्थ्यो सानैदेखि पाखा भएर होला है मैले यो पसल हिजो अस्ति भर्खर हिजो अस्ति भनौँ अस्ति दर्ता गरेर यो मेरो छोरीको नाममा दर्ता गरेछ यसमै थप्दै जाने यसमै बढ्दै जाने सकेसम्म
On the news, court refuses Peter Obi's request to stop INEC from reconfiguring beavers. Appeal court orders INEC to grant Tinubu access to inspect beavers' machines. Atiku inaugurates legal team to challenge Tinubu's election victory, reclaim mandates.